why is a squared plus, why is there this formula? Because they can see it here. Do you see? And that's the formula for a binomial, squaring a binomial, right? And then they learn the formula for squaring a trinomial and so on, right? So this is just one example to show you of how the materials can go quite advanced. So the same material that we use simply when the child is younger can become more and more and more complex and even go into algebra. And that cabinet that you see over there, just behind this lady over there, this is called the bead cabinet, and we have the cubes. If you have a look at the top, there's bead cubes. And each one is color-coded because in the Montessori environment, when we're using beads and things, the light blue is always 5. So if you look at the light blue one, that one is 5. There's a 5 cube, there's a 5 chain, there's a 5 square. And the 5 cube is 5 to the power of 3, which is 5 to the power of 3, 125. There's 125 beads in there. So the child will work with that just at the age of 6 or 7, and they'll just work with that and they'll just play with it and they'll count it and they'll know that that one has 125. And then later on, when they're older, we will show them that this is 5 to the power of 3, and they already know that it's 125. So, and then you have the cube for 6, you have the cube for 7, you have the cube for 8, and so on. You have the squares as well, so they can work with those materials. So everything is given hands-on, concrete, in a way that the child can see, can understand. And every lesson that we give them is building them for something else that they're going to get later on. So, I think I can show you one more lesson. So we have this tray. This is called the geometric cabinet. And we use this in the 3 to 6 classroom. And of course you can guess what the child does with this. They learn their shapes, right? Okay, so they learn their shapes. And for the younger children, they just basically learn the name of the shape. This is a circle, a square, a triangle. And we have a cabinet that has all the other shapes in it. So they learn all the shapes. When they get older, they can study the shape. So they can take the circle and they can study the diameter and the radius. And then they can do the same for this. They can study the perimeter and everything. And they can find the area. So they can find the area for the square by doing the base times the height divided by 2. But just base times height, length times width, sorry. And then they can find the area of the triangle by base times height divided by 2. And then how do you find the area of the square? You have to know. So you could use this to do pi. Do you guys know what pi is? Yes? Of course, in England we love pies, especially apple pie, but I'm not talking about that kind of pie, unfortunately. So you can use this to find pi. So does anyone know what pi is? Okay. Does anyone remember from when we were in school? 3.14, right? And then there's some other numbers that come after that. So pi is the circumference of the circle all the way around. So what we would do with the child is we give them a marker, they stick a little marker on here, and we ask them to take the circle, and according to the marker, do you mind if I do a line here? So we're going to do a little line here that you can rub off. Okay? I'm going to line this line up over here. Okay? And then we show the child how to roll this. They're going to keep rolling until they come to that marker again. So that's how that's the circumference of the circle, right? All the way around. So now we're gonna see the relationship between this circle, between the diameter and the circumference, which is basically what pi is. So this is 1, right? Okay. This is the diameter twice. That's 2, and this is the diameter 3 times. And there's a little bit left over. That's the 1.4. And that is actually what pi is referring to, right? But it can sound so complex, right? When you do it at school, in the normal school, it can sound complex. What on the earth? And the teacher keeps going on, but this is actually what it is. So the child can actually measure it, and they can actually see it for themselves, right? So this is just what I wanted you to see is just a few materials, how they work and how they can lead on to other materials. And make sure that you know that Montessori is not just limited to toddlers, it's not just limited to small children, it's not just limited to just a few puzzles and stuff. There's a lot more that you can do when you really delve deep into the materials. And we've set up an elementary in Nusaibah, just started this month, and Atia is setting up a girls' elementary here. And this is to ensure that those children can use these materials beyond just learning the name of the shape. We want them to go all the way. And the materials and the Montessori curriculum is designed for that. But what we did in this session today, the whole session, is we started with the philosophy and then we've done a little bit of materials, because the most important thing about Montessori is not the materials. The most important thing is the philosophy. And that's why we did a lot of that first. And I'm just doing this just to excite you and show you the ability of these materials. Right? So I hope you enjoyed that. And if you do want to buy materials, you can let me know, because we have some materials that we sell. And I think a lot of you were asking me about how to contact you. You can just go on my Instagram, Rumi Montessori, right? You can go on my Instagram or my Facebook. If you don't follow Instagram and Facebook, you can just message me directly, and I'm setting up a WhatsApp group so that those who don't go on, I really like it when people don't go on social media. I only do it because I have to, but it's much better if you don't, right? Because a lot of people, they'll flick through the photos, oh, this mum did this activity, look at her house, and they'll start to feel bad about themselves. So, you don't have to do that. So that's why we're going to put things on just WhatsApp as well, so that people can just, see on the groups as well. So you can contact me and find more information about that, and hopefully keep yourself excited about Montessori, and excited about the changes you can make so that your child can benefit and have the best environment that's going to help them reach their full potential.
InsyaAllah. Okay, Alhamdulillah. Okay, now sempat untuk question and answers. Anybody have any question? Yes, Miss Crystal.
May I know what is the Montessori apparatus? Will I instruct me with all the color coding?
So color coding can help a child to work with something without having to always count or having to always try to remember what that is. So let's say with these beads there, the 4 is always yellow. The purple one is always 6. So if a child is working with the beads and they have a purple one and a yellow one, they know straight away it's 4 plus 6. 4 plus 6. But they don't have to count every single one. So it's taking them one step into the abstract, one small step into the abstract. And it helps them to be quicker. And also when things are color-coded, they're all organized, so the child can take the information fully by themselves. So let's say a child is working with the maps and they want to know which animals live in Asia. They can just take the cards that have a yellow border. They don't have to come and ask a child or teach them. The actual color is just the color that Maria Montessori decided to make it.
Any other questions?
My question is regarding the development plan developed by Montessori. So you mentioned that during the 0 to 6 years, the main development is on the absorbent mind and the independency that they are trying to build, right? So what about the emotional part, where I see that during the development plan it is towards the end, right? So I conclude that in my case, I can it is not my main focus to really soothe my child. So if he cries, I can let him cry over a certain period. So is that so? It won't.
When we're talking about emotional development, we're talking about how all the children are like us. Everyone has emotions, so there's an emotional side to you, and you have to learn how to develop and that emotional side and be able to control it and be able to work through your emotions in a positive way for something good to come out. Right? So that's what, when we're talking about emotional development, that's what we're talking about. So in a Montessori classroom, there are many lessons that we do. Even our environment, the way it's set up, it supports healthy emotional development. The fact that we have one of everything, so children will naturally have to share, they'll learn how to to have patience, they'll learn how to wait, they'll learn how to interact with each other positively, they'll learn how to think positively about people and so on. So that emotional development is supported all the way through from the beginning. In the emotional development, children will be much happier they'll be much happier if they have all of their needs met in terms of the home is being fulfilled in the right way, a balanced way, not the over the top way where you're giving your child too much, or the other way where you're not giving your child what they need, right? That's how happiness comes, through that concentration, right? So when we're talking about the emotional side, it's not necessarily about whether children can be left to cry or not left to cry. That is a topic, I think there's a lot to talk about. I don't want to give like a one answer and then it be misunderstood. There's a lot to take into consideration when a child is crying. You have to look at why they're crying, what they're crying for, and so on, and see whether it's a cry that you leave or whether it's a cry that you have to attend to. Right? So that's a long, long talk about that one. But the emotional development, just so it's clear, is throughout childhood that we have to nurture it, throughout, all the time. It's part of the child, it's always there and always needs the right support.
So you said we have to observe the kids on what they are interested in, what the things that they are not interested in, so what should we do with that?
So those things depend on what are the things that the child is not interested in. Let's say you observe a child and they're interested in, I'm just going to give you a very shocking one. Let's say the child is interested in drugs. Are we going to let the child use the drugs? No. We're not going to follow an interest that is not healthy for the child, right? Let's say the child is interested in overeating. We're not going to just give them all this food to overeat. We observe the interest, but we have to be the ones with our knowledge and our understanding and our authority as the parent. We have to be the ones to ensure that the child is focusing, that what they're absorbing. The home is only going to direct the child to something that's healthy for their development, by the way. So if the child is directing to something that's not healthy, that's not the home. That's something else. That's the willpower of the child. It's a different one. So the stuff that you see that the child is not being interested in, you have to decide. You have to look at them and you have to decide. One, is it that this is something the child doesn't need and it's not necessary right now, and maybe they can be interested in it later and it's necessary for the child later? Or is this something that's really important that the child needs to have this? Like, let's say, for example, the child is not interested in Quran ever. You're not going to take the Quran out of the environment, right? So that's why you have to decide. But if you have if you have a certain puzzle and the child is just not interested in puzzles, yes, that is something that maybe you could just put away for now and try later. But certain things, you have to have your morals, you have to have your decision and your morals about what things are okay for the child to not engage in, and what things are what things are necessary and what things are okay to take out. And that's where we get the balance again. Right? Did that answer? Okay.
Yeah, okay, so how do you the problem that now they're not interested in the Quran? So how do you get them interested? Or you gotta keep on...
One way, anything you want your child to do, first of all, you have to start from love. First, you have to start from love. You don't want them to want to learn Quran because you've made them learn Quran. There's so many children that go to tahfiz because their parents put them in tahfiz and they memorize the whole Quran. And there's teenagers, they memorize the whole Quran, and at night time they're going out smoking into the karaoke class. They do that. There's so many in Malaysia children doing that because they don't have the love for the Quran, right? They don't have the love for Quran. They're just doing it because they've been made to do it. Everything has to start from love. Right? First, instill the love. Let them understand that the Quran, it's like the language of this universe. This is coming from Allah. Let them understand and love the Quran first. Connect them to the Quran through the stories of the prophets and the stories that they can relate to. So they have that love. And from that love, the child will be inspired to learn Quran. It has to come from love first. And if you do all of that and the child still doesn't want to learn Quran, then you have to find out what's the blockage. What is inside the child that's preventing this? Because there must be something and you need to fix that. Maybe like, you know, they had a really bad experience and the Quran is playing and they just remember that experience and they remember that every time they hear the Quran. So you have to find out what it is and you have to clarify that aspect for the child.
So you can know that at a certain age of my children, this is the activity that I can play with my children.
For young children, like 2 and under, there's actually a chart that's available free online, and you can just look at the chart and you can see 10 months, and it'll give you an example that you can do this with your child at 10 months, you can do this. So there's a chart, you just put in like Montessori toddler timeline, or it's called the psychomotor development chart. So you can just look for that chart for children who are younger, and then when it becomes older, then it's more like 2.5 plus, then you're more looking at a curriculum, a Montessori curriculum. So there's quite a lot of curriculums available. Just make sure whatever curriculum you use is actually really an authentic Montessori curriculum, not just something that some homeschooler who's learned about Montessori has put together and then you just say, oh, this is the Montessori curriculum. It has to be a proper curriculum that's used in a school with many, many, many children and it's tested for many years. It has to be one of those curriculums. Because Montessori the word Montessori is not branded, right? So anyone can claim that they're doing Montessori. You can go back today and you can be like, okay, I went to this Montessori, I'm doing Montessori, I'm a Montessori teacher, I'm a Montessori parent, that you can just go back and you can just do that straight away. And every activity you share with people, you say, this is Montessori, you can do that, right? Anyone, there's no branding, there's nothing to stop you from doing that. But just because someone has shared something and said it's Montessori doesn't mean it's really truly Montessori. And this is something that has to be addressed nowadays, not just in Malaysia, all over the place. Because there are lots of people sharing information, and then there's one lady who did a talk about Montessori for the elementary child, and she said there's no sensitive periods for the elementary child. I was like, huh? I was like, hang on a minute, where did you get that information from? I was like, just look at the books, there are. So it's very easy if you haven't studied fully, and to study to become, you know, Ati is going to come to my school for 1,000 hours. Oh, I'm so happy. 1,000 hours to get training. 1,000 hours. That's not the training of materials, that's the training on the job. Right? Can you imagine? That's how much time she has to come to train. And even after that, she's still going to be like, I've got more to learn, you know? So to become a Montessori teacher, it takes years. It's not a simple, small matter. It becomes years. So just be careful. There's a lot of brilliant stuff out there. There's some parents who have attended some training and they're doing really, 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 really good work. But just be careful to make sure, like, you have to always go back. Is it something real? Is it something realistic? And there's other ways to determine whether something is authentic or not, if it's real Montessori or not. And so even the curriculum you have to kind of consider. Is it really a Montessori curriculum? Or is it something just been put together? But, you know, you have to try to understand that part as well.
Any more questions? Maybe in the UK, when does this Montessori curriculum really ends? I don't know, before the transitioning to school.
In England, they have a problem because most Montessori nurseries only have children who are 3 and 4 years. I don't know if you know that, because once the child is reception age, which is when they're 4 turning 5, they will go into the reception class in a school. So usually in England, the majority of Montessori schools only have 3 and 4 year olds, which means we don't have that full cycle from 3 until 6 years old. And maybe when I was last in England, there were probably about maybe 10 elementary schools that I've heard of in the whole of England, right? So Montessori in England is not as well developed as it is in America. In America, you can have a school that has 10 elementary classrooms. It's like the opposite, right? You have so many Montessori. So in the UK, it's hard to find up to the age of 12. It really, really is hard. And usually it's just a nursery. But if you're talking about America or Australia, they'll go all the way up to 12. I've even gone to a Montessori adolescence school. And I'm hoping one day, inshallah, that I'll go and do the adolescence training for that next stage and get that next stage to go even deeper and deeper into what to do for the child at that stage. Any more questions? Oh, so me and Atia had this idea to do like some myth busting about Montessori, because when you go online and you read lots of stuff and you speak to people, sometimes there's lots of myths that go around. So Atia, which one do you want to do?
I think the first one is Montessori isn't 100% suitable for Malaysian children.
Okay, that's one question I got asked a lot when I came to Malaysia. Yeah, but you can't do this in Malaysia. But you can't, like sometimes I do consultancy for Montessori schools, like the top-notch Montessori schools. I do consultancy for them, and then they have worksheets. And I say, you can't not have worksheets. You can't have worksheets in a Montessori school. And then they say to me, no, but in Malaysia you can't. In Malaysia, you have to have worksheets because, you know, it's not suitable. Or, you know, sometimes the freedom that the children have in the environment and everything, they say, you know, you can't do this for Malaysian children. You know, there's sometimes people have said to me that Malaysian children are really laid back, which is true. There is an element where Malaysians are more laid back than the average European person. So they say that if the Malaysian child is in a Montessori environment, they're going to be too laid back or too like lazy to try new things, to try different things. I have not seen that at all. At all. I mean, the classroom that we have, and you've seen, right? The classroom that we have is 100% authentic Montessori. If my teachers even try to bring in one thing that's not Montessori, I will notice and I'm like, no, you can't do that. It's 100% Montessori, and it works perfectly fine with the children. The children are happy, they're engaged, they're learning, they're progressing, and they are like, you know, they're engaging, they're excited, they're learning. And, you know, when you compare, from what I've seen, when I compare the children who've been in our Montessori environment for like 1 year, because we've only been open for 1 year, and to another child who's just been in a normal environment or in a, what's it, Kaiser or something like that, and you compare them, the children in the Montessori environment, they definitely have something different, you can see. So it is 100% applicable to Montessori, Malaysia, 100% applicable to Malaysia. No, there's no question about it. Anything that you see that's not working, it's not because Montessori doesn't work, it's because it's not being implemented in the right way.
So another one is Montessori is expensive to implement.
So it's true, the Montessori materials are really expensive, but you can create a lot of them yourself. Like this one you can make. I mean, there's one lady in Malaysia online. She's done quite a few of my courses, and then she's on a tight budget, so she started to make lots of materials. So she made the color boxes, she made the smelling boxes, she made the tasting, just from like stuff. And she's enjoying it so much that she's decided she's going to make everything. She even made the red rods. So back in the days when I didn't have enough money to buy it, I just made them myself. A lot of these materials you can make, even the beads. There's one time I made a whole bead cabinet. I even made the cabinet. Like, I even made the cabinet myself. And you know, my son was like 4 and I'm sitting there sawing the wood. I'm like, you know, everything you can, and it's true, you can make stuff by yourself. And you don't have to have everything, you don't. And one thing that I was doing when I was in England, we had a group of homeschoolers, and they were like buying material and recycling, so like sharing them. So like you can come together, buy a set of materials, and then pass them along. So different, you know, like you finished with your geometric cabinet, so now you can pass it on, or you can resell it at a lower price to someone else, and then they can resell it, because some of these materials will last for 20, 30, 40 years. So you don't have to keep, once your child is finished, you don't have to put it in the cupboard and just leave it. You can sell it at a lower price and let someone else buy it. Or if you can, just give it to someone, you know, and let other children benefit from it.
I think one last one. Montessori is all play and no work.
So this is sometimes people say Montessori is all play and children don't work. And other people, when they come into a Montessori classroom, they see that the children are just playing. No, they're not. They're just working. There's no chance for them to play, right? There's the two extremes. There's this article that talks about how one person may come to the Montessori environment and they might say, oh my God, this is a controlled environment, and the children are so controlled and their choices are controlled, and they're just working and there's no freedom and there's no play. And someone else can come into the same environment and they can look and they can say, there's no boundaries. The children are just free. They're choosing whatever they want. It always depends on what you're looking at when you're in that environment. And the reason that you can get both extremes is because it's in the middle. We have just the right balance. between their freedom and the structure. It's just in the right balance. That's why you can see both sides. People can see different viewpoints. Let's say you went into a mainstream tadika where everybody's sitting at a table. You cannot say that's freedom, right? There's no way you can call it freedom because it's not. And if you went to somewhere like, there's some settings where the children just run like crazy and just do whatever they want to do, and there's no structure, and they just, it's like, you know, whatever on the earth they want to do, they just do it. There's no structure. You cannot call that controlled or structured, right? So the fact that Montessori gets this either one is because it's in the middle, and that's also relevant to the work. Montessori tells us that the work of the child is play. So when a child is working with this material, they're not thinking, oh, this is my work. Actually, work is something that we created. This 9 to 5, I go to work. That's something we created, right? For the child, there's no difference between work and play. Work is play and play is work for them. It's the same thing. When they're working with this, they're playing with this. When they're cutting a banana, they're playing. Everything to the child is playing. But our activities, they have a purpose and they have a developmental objective, and the child is as they work with the material, they're acquiring concise and accurate information. So it's balanced. So the work and play aspect is 100% balanced in the Montessori environment.
Okay semua, ada soalan lagi tak ada? Lupa nak tanya tadi, Nusaibah punya lecture punya, kalau bahasa semua boleh faham kan insyaAllah? Kalau ada apa-apa persoalan boleh tanya saya, nak tolong translate ke apa ke? I forgot, but they all understood. Good crowd. Too late.
When I first came to Malaysia and I gave like my first ever talk, I was just like talking to children and everyone was like, what language is this? Because I was talking really fast, right? But I think that now I've managed to like slow down.
You did well. Thank you so much. So Alhamdulillah everyone, thank you so much for your attention and your time. Alhamdulillah, please help us to give our feedback, your feedback, and fill out the feedback form. And again, if you want to know more, please follow Nusaibah on Instagram on Dreaming Montessori, and or if not, you the WhatsApp group. Yeah, maybe I could share that link with them. We'll send you the WhatsApp link to your numbers, inshallah. And then even the apparatus, everything I got from Nusaibah. So she really will help you, inshallah. Okay. So alhamdulillah, thank you very much everyone. Minta maaf kalau ada apa-apa kekurangan. Dan semoga insyaAllah kita boleh berjumpa lagi. Dan kalau ada apa-apa persoalan ke apa lepas ni boleh tanya, insyaAllah. Okay, Assalamualaikum.
And usually I'm doing this new thing for this month on Instagram on Fridays. I'm just opening up for any questions. So if you do think of a question over the next few days, and then you think, oh, I wish I'd asked that question, you can just go on there and post the question. Or if you don't go on Instagram, just get someone else to just post the question for you, and then I'll try my best to answer it. So we can try to keep that, because if you're really going to do this, you're going to have lots of questions happen as you go along. So you can look at the old questions there, and then you can also ask new questions if you want.
And she really does answer the questions.
When they come here, I like to see like what people ask. It's exciting because it's like it means that some child somewhere is going to get something the right way. So I'm like, yes, if they can understand this, then I'm not even there, but the child will get some benefit. And that's what we
You're
want.
thinking of the child.
That's what we want, is we want more children to have that education and more parents to know. Like I've seen situations where
The parent really struggles with their child, really struggles, and the parent really just wants to do the right thing, right? And you're at your edge, you just don't know what to do, and sometimes the answer can be so simple. You don't just save the child, you save the parent, you save the marriage, you save the society, you save everything. So that's what we want to do, and that's why I'm like happy to like come with Atia, because she really comes from that direction of, you know, the love, and you know, it's not just about you or me or my children. This is about the whole of humanity. We want to make a difference. So do share with your friends and family other information. If we need to have another group of people, we can arrange that as well, so that more people can benefit from it.
Okay, semua terima kasih. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.